Welcome to the Think Generational Podcast, episode number 77. I am your host, Amir Estimo. Thank you very much for tuning in to the podcast, taking the time to listen to it. I always like to open up the podcast with thanks and appreciation and gratitude. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast because honestly, you could be doing anything in this world, but the fact that you're listening to this, hopefully this podcast is of value to you. Please do me a favor, rate and review the podcast. Leave a 5-star rating if you enjoy the content. Also, share the content. This message of financial literacy we're trying to get out is very important because we need to eradicate this. So today's episode, I'm going to just talk about how you yourself can raise your credit score today. How you actually can fix your own credit. People think that fixing your credit, it's something that takes patience, number one. And let me give you just a side story. I, at one point, was in a bad situation when it came to credit. I was raised in a household, didn't really understand financial literacy. But when you're an immigrant parents and they come in this country, the first thing they really trying to do is really just come here, stack up as much money as they can, and send back to their family. And hopefully even bringing their family over to provide for them to have a better life also. So when you think about it in today's episode, it's going to be something to where it wasn't really talked about. Like, it was not an education. No one's fault. It's not my dad's, it's not my mom's or anything like that. It's just that there was just a situation. So after that, going off to college, I didn't understand, didn't know how it worked. So I'd rack up credit card bills and obviously didn't pay it. So fast forward years down the road, obviously some of the most annoying thing you get is this is what really made me hate owing people. This is why I don't like owing people at all. Is because when I was when you owe credit, they call you like consistently and it gets annoying after a while. Sometimes they'll call you 1 to 2 times a day to harass you when you're going to make a payment. To me, I looked at that as this is not even worth it. It's not even worth my time. So if I borrow from you, you just have to think of credit like that. If I borrow from you, I got to pay you back. That's basically what it comes down to, right? So a lot of people, when that happened to me, I didn't even know credit repair companies even exist, honestly. I just knew that, okay, you know what, this is something I just have to fix because obviously you're going to be paying the most highest interest rates. It just doesn't look good. And it's not a good look. And even being an adult, if you're an adult who's a certain age, even if you are coming into adulthood, it's just not responsible to have bad credit. Now, things happen in life, which I understand, but you have to do something about it. You can't just sit there and let it fester and just put it off to the back burner because it's something that you don't want to deal with. But believe it or not, it's something you're going to have to deal with because there's a lot of things, buying a house, buying cars, insurance, even certain jobs, they require you to have good credit. And the reason even certain jobs, especially if it comes with money handling, they want to make sure is that you're not going to come and steal from them because you're in a bad situation. So think about it. Jobs, car notes, house. If you're buying any of that stuff, that will require you to have good credit. And credit has actually probably now has become more important than even cash itself. Because when you think of cash money is you're using money to exchange for either a product or a service. That's basically what money is. So that's really kind of the only use for money in a sense because you don't really have, otherwise, it doesn't really go up in value. It does not. So, and number two, there's no reason. I mean, you use cash and pay cash for everything. Even rich people themselves or a high net worth are not using their own cash all the time. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, any of those high net worth people, they're not using cash. They're using what they call other people's money. And especially if you have a business You want to have business credits, especially if you want to if you want to scale your business. You can't scale with just cash. Eventually, you're going to run out of money. So that's why it's important to have credit. So if you have a good credit, whether it's business or personal, it will take you a long way. So let's jump into this episode. Hopefully that helps, the quick introduction. Now you have 5 factors that affect your credit score. I want to go a little bit detail into each one of them. And I'm telling you right now, you can do this on your own if you want to. The reason why a lot of people don't want to because they don't have the patience, and it takes time, especially if you're coming with because a credit score is what they call the adult GPA. That's basically your GPA. So if you come in here and you got so much going on with your credit, even your finance, it's not something that's just going to take a day or two or even a month or two. This could take years. And the main thing you want to do when you are looking, let's say you don't want to fix your credit on your own, or maybe you tried and has been unsuccessful. You could find a credit card company. The main thing you want them to do is educate you. And that's the thing, well, a lot of times with these credit card companies, and you don't pay them unless they do something, some type of work, whether it's maybe sending out a letter, disputes, or something to that nature, because you only have 3 major credit bureaus. You have Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Those are the main 3, right? And then you have FICO and you have Vantage scores. So depending on what company whoever's doing what, 90% of lenders, top lenders, use the FICO score. So sometimes if you see your score, let's say TransUnion, Credit Karma is accurate to a certain point, but depending on the company, it may not be as accurate. Like you may see yourself in a situation, you have a 750 credit score, and then when let's say you go apply for a credit card or something to that nature, and your credit score may be a 720 because they're just different factors. So you don't want to get hung up too much on the factors. You just need to know that these are the 6 things. These are there's 5, but there's an extra one I'm putting in there. There's 5 factors that affect your credit score. These 5 things affect your credit score. And if you break each one down, you can actually say, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to focus on this. And then next round, focus on this, and so on and so on. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 1 is your payment history. That is 35% of your credit score. Now, your payment history, think about it in a sense, this is history. This is what happened in the past. So generally, you want your payment history to be top. Like you want to have no missing payment. You want when they pull your credit report, depending on the company, they just want to see 100% payment history. You want to make sure it's better to pay the minimum to not pay at all. And what a lot of people do is, they don't pay the credit. They don't pay this. Let's say they pay one payment late. And sometimes some of these credit card companies will even work with you, or maybe it's your, mortgage, or maybe it's your car note. They'll work with you and say, okay, you know what? I know you've been a customer of ours. You've been a client of ours for a long time. You had a great relationship. We can actually forgive you. But don't make that a habit. Now, if you would look at your credit report, you can go to freeannualcreditreport.com or annualcreditreport.com, and actually you can get one free credit report. But generally, I don't know if they show the scores. That I haven't done in a while. But I know when I used to, before I had my bank, they didn't even include the credit scores. So you got the credit, your report, but not the credit scores. So you don't even know where you stand at. But honestly, that's besides the point. The point is that you want to make sure your payment history has to be top notch, because that's 35% of your credit score. So if you go in there and you look at your credit report and you got a bad payment history, the first thing you're going to have to do is, and let's be real, don't sit there and try to fabricate it and say that. The main thing is be honest with yourself. Don't sit there and be like, oh, no, you know what? I'm going to try to contest this, because you're going to lose most of the time. So don't worry about contesting that. Unless it's just something that's, that does not, maybe it's not you. Maybe you're dealing with identity theft. The main thing you want to do here is think of it. This is history. It's already happened. So the main thing you want to do from this point on, make your payments on time. This is 35% of your credit score. This will eat, if you make 1, 2, 3 late payments, this will eat your credit score up. So the first thing you're going to do here is, okay, my payment history is not good. Let's say 60, 70%, 100%, whatever. I mean, 60%, 70%. You want to get it to 100%. Start fixing that. Fix your payment history. Start making minimum payments. Start calling these creditors up. Start talking to them and say, hey, I went through a bad financial situation. Hey, I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to buy a house in a couple of years, whatever that is. And they'll work with you. Number 2, amounts owed. Now, amounts owed is 30% of your credit. Now, credit, you have these are 2 types of credit that reports. You have your revolving and you have your installment. So what's the difference? Revolving is something like your credit card because it constantly changes. You don't have the same payment every single month. It could be 0, it could be 12, it could be 30, it could be 1,000. Who knows? 1,000, I'm exaggerating, but as far as the minimum payment, it changes every single month. Then you have installment. Installment will be like your car note, like mortgage, because it's one fixed payment every single month. Now, mortgage is a little tricky because based off taxes and insurance, that's what raises your credit score. But your fixed interest and your principal is, your principal, obviously when you start paying it goes down, but you have one fixed payment when it comes to your credit. You want to make sure you do not owe a lot. General thumb is, let's say you have a 20%, let's say you have $1,000 credit limit and you use 200 of it. Now think of it this way. You want to keep each of your accounts below. Now, besides installment, it doesn't really work too much for. When it comes to your revolving, let's say it's credit cards, you want to make sure you're under 30%. That's what they say. That's like the overall utilization, right? Or that's the overall. Let's say if you have 100,000 in credit limit and you got 30,000, that's going to put you close to that 30% mark, right? But you don't want to over leverage yourself. Those are called over leveraging. Each of your accounts, though, you want to make sure each of your account is below 10%. That's the kind of the sweet spot. For me, I say 5%. That's just my opinion. If anybody else if 10% works for you, then continue. I say 5% because that gives me a chance. Whatever the other 5%, I can use some of that money to leverage and invest, whether it's stocks, crypto, I can do that. I don't have to get into a mindset where I feel more comfortable. And this is what's helped me raise my credit score into where now I'm at about an 800. So you want to make sure you keep your credit utilization down. Anything above 10%. So if you have $1,000 credit limit, you don't want to go above $100 in spending. And even if you do, you want to make sure you pay that money before your statement cycle. So now there's a difference. Now you have your due date and you have your statement cycle. So your statement cycle generally runs anywhere between 29 and 31 days, just depending on the month, whatever it is. Now, let's say you owe $200 or even $1,000. Let's say you were to max out your credit limit. You want to make sure, let's say your billing cycle or your statement cycle goes from the 19th to the 18th. Before the 18th hit, you want to make sure you pay that $1,000 off. Because if you don't, once it closes, it's going to report on your credit report. And guess what? It's going to report that you use 100% of your credit, which does not look good. The banks don't care. Believe it or not, they don't care about how you use you use your credit, you use a lot of it, you use none of it, use some of it. They just want to make sure you pay and you're not using too much of it. Because there's a lot of these factors when they want to lend you some money or they want to give you a credit card, they have to look at it and say, okay, what's the history? Like, let's say you have a history of overutilizing your credit. You're not going to get a credit card. You're not going to get approved. You want to make sure you keep that 10% because this is 30%. So now we're at payment history and amounts owed. Do you guys see what's going on? Payment history, amount owed. You pay. If you owe, you pay. That's just what it comes down to. Don't use too much of your credit. Now, let's say amounts owed. If you want to work this on your own, what you want to do is look at your amounts owed, and you want to see, okay, if I have, is these what's being reported belongs to me. If it does not belong to me, you can actually do what they call contest it. And you can send that. Now, you have your three major credit bureaus, which I mentioned earlier, but you may have TransUnion. TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they're all different. But sometimes you may have an account that reports to all three, right? And if you don't pay, let's say you use too much of your credit limit, or let's say there may be something negative. Experian may have it, but TransUnion may not, or vice versa, right? So what you want to make sure is you don't have anything negative that comes on your credit report. But when it comes to amount owed, you want to make sure that that loan or that trade line belongs to you. If it doesn't, contest it. And I'm see if I can find it, but I'm pretty sure there's some websites you can actually go get a template and you can actually send that yourself, because by law, credit card companies, when you send them, like let's say you are contesting, you're disputing something on your report, by law they have to respond to you. And sometimes they'll use tactics like, oh no, belongs to you. And sometimes, they'll stall as much as they can. But that's why I say it takes patience. You gotta be patient. If you're not a patient person, just it's best to find a credit card company to handle that for you, or find a credit repair company to handle that for you, because this takes time. Number 3, credit history link. So now I touched on payment history and I touched on amount owed. Credit history is 15%. And what that is that if you have, let's say you have an account, you want to make sure you have accounts that are very aged, because that shows responsible borrow. Now, your credit history length, the one thing you don't want to do, and I'm already telling you this right now, let's say you have a credit card, maybe you don't even use it, or maybe it's the department's credit card, you don't even use it, you just stash it away or something. And let's say down the road, you've had this account for 5 years, and then you turn around and say, I'm done, I'm gonna close it. That actually hurts you than help you. Because one, now you just lost 5 years of credit history. And let's say you had great payment history, you just lost that. So now if you just lost your payment history, you just not payment history, you just lost your credit history link. That's why it's imperative. Even if you don't use the credit card that much, maybe use it every 2 or maybe quarter or something like that, every 2 months. Charge, maybe put like some type of bill or subscription on there, like $10-15. Keep it reported, keep it active, because the more it's reported. Now, if you close the account, that does not help you at all. So this here credit history lane there's not much you can really do on this side, is because it's based off of having, owning your credit. Like if you have an account 6 months, like a credit card, you've had it for 6 months, that doesn't help you. But if you have a credit card for 5 years, 6 years, that actually helps you, because now it shows that within that 5 to 6 years, you are actually a responsible borrower. So now if you don't fix let's say your history, you start closing accounts. That's why it's imperative not to open too many accounts, because the one thing you don't want is you don't want to open another account, open it within, let's say, a 6 to 7 month time frame, because that actually hurts your credit history. And guess what? If you apply for a credit card, that may be something that they'll even use against you to not even approve you. So the one thing you want to make sure you do here is keep your accounts active, keep them open. It doesn't matter how bad or how high the interest rate is. Do not do it. It's better just to, keep it open, use it here and there, and then pay it. Or if you wanted to, keep it going. Now, what I was saying earlier, as far as your statement cycle. Now, let's go down to the due date. The difference between the two is the due date. So let's say you do carry that balance and you say, okay, I'm carrying $200, whatever that is. If you don't pay that before the due date, guess what happens? The next day, the company starts to charge you interest rate on the $200 that you didn't pay. Or they will charge you interest rate of whatever that balance is. So if your statement, so you when you look at your account, you have your due date, you have your statement date, and you have your current, right? So you have your statement is what that 200 balance, that's the balance. You have to make sure you pay that by the due date. Okay. Then you have current. Okay. So you have your current, whatever you owe. So let's say you turn around and use more of it. And now you owe 500. You want to make sure the $200 is paid, not the 500. The 500 you want to make sure is paid before your statement cycle. But the 200, because that's your statement balance from the previous, you want to make sure that is paid. Because if you don't pay that, the next day they're going to hit you with interest. And if you want to carry a balance and never pay interest, guess what happens is you have to make sure you pay your credit card. You have to make sure you pay your credit card, obviously, and you want to make sure that you are not just out there and just using your credit, whatever that is, but you want to make sure you pay it, because the statement cycle. So understand the difference between the two, folks. I hope I'm not confusing you. You have your statement cycle, which is whatever that is, 29 to 30 days, and then you have your due date. So if you carry a balance, let's say that $200, you want to make sure you pay that $200 before the due date. But let's say you didn't pay, you paid $100. They're going to charge you interest on the $100 because that's still your statement balance. So you want to understand the difference. There's statement balance, and then there's your due date. If you carry a balance, you want to make sure you pay it before the due date. But if you don't want to carry a balance, you want to make sure you pay it before the statement date. So those are the two differences. So if you carry a balance, due date. If you don't want to carry a balance, statement. So you want to make sure you pay so you don't pay any interest at all. Okay, and then and that actually helps. That will propel your credit score. You believe it or not, you do that, let's say 6 months, 4 to 6 months, you will see your credit score gradually go up. Okay. Number 4, credit mix. Now, credit mix, you have a variety of factors here. This here is 10%. Credit history is 15%. Credit mix is 10%. So what is credit mix? Having a student loans, car note, mortgage, credit cards. Let's say personal loan, which I'm not an advocate. I'm not an advocate of doing personal loans, unless you're using that to grow wealth or something. But I'm just saying is that you have these different types of accounts, because when you have a healthy mix of credit, they're looking at you and saying, oh, it's okay if we give this person a mortgage because they can handle a mortgage, they can handle their credit cards, they can handle a car loan, they can handle, they have different accounts that they can handle. And it also shows you're in a strong financial position. Now, if you're not default on none of this stuff and you have 100%, that's why that payment history is important. You have a healthy mix, and then you have a healthy mix of credit, and then you're paying it on time. It looks really good. That's 10%. Okay. Number 5, new credit. These are inquiries. So now you have soft and you have hard. A hard inquiry is basically them going in there, looking at your credit. That takes points off your credit. A soft does not. That doesn't really get reported because, let's say, American Express is an example. If I need a new credit card, I'll call them up because I already have a relationship with American Express. And actually, they even see my credit because they're the ones. I can go into American Express and see my FICO score. They don't really necessarily need to go pull a hard inquiry. It just really determines. You want to make sure before you apply for any card, just believe your mortgage and your car note. They're going to run a hard inquiry. So that it doesn't matter about that, right? But let's say, you want to ask a credit card company, hey, if let's say you have a credit card, or you want to make sure any new credit, even for yourself, right? You want to make sure any new credit is actually something you have applied for, because believe if you're a victim of identity theft, Someone can go in there and just trying to open up a whole bunch of credit cards in your name. And those reported as inquiries. The only thing about hard inquiries is you feel it at first, but as it starts to age, it kind of like goes away. So it doesn't affect your credit score as bad. The first, you'll probably lose a point or two, but or maybe even three, just depends. But if don't get in the habit of just applying for a whole bunch of credit card or applying for a whole bunch of credit, because that really does not help you. It actually hurts you, and you don't want to do too many in a year. I don't know what's a number, to be honest with you. I don't know what's a number that you could, hey, if you apply, do 2 or 3. I'm not sure about that. For me, is if I don't need it, then there's no need for me to try to go open up a new credit. I rather focus on increasing my credit limits. You always want that, because let's say you owe $1,000, right? And you get a credit limit increase and it goes up to 2,000, right? Now, remember, you had a 20% on that 1,000. But the fact that now, if you go in, let's say you get another credit line increase, now you're at 2,000, that 200 now becomes 10%. You see, it is very important to focus on that. Focus on increasing your credit limits versus opening a whole bunch of new credits. Because now you may have a reason. I don't know what's your reason. That's something you would have to determine. But maybe you want to buy a house. That's important. Yeah, you're going to need to run your credit. Buying a car, yes, you're going to need to run your credit. These things will happen. What you don't want is too many of it. You don't want to open up enough here, and then now you all of a sudden you're just opening a whole bunch of credit. And guess what? These lenders are eventually going to say, you know what? You've opened too many accounts in an X amount of years. We're not extending you any credit. Okay. So keep that in mind, folks, is even though this is 10%, it's actually to me, I think it's important, because just for the fact that you just want to be a disciplined borrower. You want to use your credit when you really need. You want to run your credit when you really need to. If you don't have no need for it, don't go start opening a whole bunch of inquiries and then it jacks up your credit, right? Okay. Now, I would say number 6 is negative remarks. This here is a killer. And people don't realize how bad this looks. When I used to look at my credit, I had like 3 of them on there. And when I got rejected for credit, that was the main thing they brought up, was the negative remarks. And negative remarks looks very bad. So let's say if it's a bankruptcy, maybe you had a account and you haven't paid it so long, they just left it a negative remark. That hurts your credit score, and it actually hurts your credit report. Because now on the credit score side, you can bounce back, but on the credit report side, it kind of hurts it, because that's what they look at. Now, if you were to go apply for a mortgage, what they're going to look at is that, man, this person, they didn't pay their car note. They didn't pay they've been behind on other credit cards, or maybe they had accounts that were, closed. Is you want to make sure that this does not, like foreclosure, tax lien, collections, bankruptcy, civil, anything that can hurt your credit score and your report actually can hurt your credit report. And it takes in most cases, 7 to 10 years before it falls off your credit. And I was doing a simulation, just to start wrapping up. I was doing a simulation with one of my banks. And they kind of did the simulation to where if you had bad credit, like let's say you had bankruptcy on your credit report, bankruptcy drops your credit score 100 points, sometimes 150. I was so astonished. I'm like, wow. So if you had a 700 credit score, you go get a bankruptcy, that can drop your credit score easily to 550. So derogatory remarks, even though it is not a score indicator, but it hurts your credit because when you go and try to, let's say, you go in, they pull your report, they see these derogatory remarks, deny easily. And if you do have it on your credit, make sure it belongs to you. If it does not belong to you, contest it. Okay. Now, I kind of went over what affects your credit scores. Now, how do you fix your credit score? That's the question, right? The question is patience. Number one, you're gonna have to be patient. You cannot get in a you cannot go ahead and think that you're gonna improve your credit score today. That doesn't happen. That's gonna take time. Number two, get a credit report. Get your credit report. See what's on there. See, anything, even if it's an address. Let's say it's in an inquiry and it's wrong. Contest it. Contest it. You can dispute it. In most cases, you may end up winning. Okay, but you're gonna have to be patient because sometimes these credit card or these credit companies, what they'll do is like Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. What they'll do is they will stall as much as they can until you give up. But if you don't give up, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep disputing. They come back and they give you some lame reason, and deep down it's not yours. You will just keep going through it, keep going. You can find there's templates online. I'm pretty sure if you were to put dispute credit, go Google it, you'll probably find it. There's a template online you can use and send. Or you can just write your own letter. And it's probably better if it's your own touch because a lot of these credit card companies, repair companies, they are using same verbiage. So when these companies they're seeing the same verbiage over and over and over again, they start to develop a process where they just be like, you know what, or they'll say, hey, you need to have permission or give permission to a third party because they don't really want to deal with credit repair companies because credit repair already has a negative connotation to it because it's an industry that's not really regulated. And there's been situations to where people will come in and, you'll pay them and they've done absolutely nothing and you don't see any results. That's why I say it's imperative for you to be educated enough to where when you see not much work being done, you can already get out and they can't take your money until they've done work. If they've done absolutely nothing, you don't have to pay them, right? But what I'm saying is you can repair your own credit. Now, it may be a situation that it may be now. There may be some things you're doing wrong now that you can fix through, or it may be a situation you're just going to have to get better as time goes on. It's just going to take some time because it doesn't matter. Like to me, the one thing I had to do was I had to admit to myself and be like, I had to stay the course and say, okay, you know what, I will stay the course. And I took time and I actually was patient enough to now some of that stuff started falling off my credit, but it took years. It wasn't happening. It didn't happen in 1 year, 2 years. It took years. It took really years, folks, for that to happen. And when your credit score improves, I think the first thing you need to do is educate yourself. Education goes a long way. If you don't educate yourself, it's very hard for you to know what the other company is even doing. Because if you just kind of come in, hands open and you just started, hey, I need you to repair my credit. I mean, they could, but you got to know they should be walking you through the process and educating you. Because the reason you want education is to do what? Not make the same mistake. Now, if you're making the same mistake, you're not learning. I have a thing. Hopefully this makes sense. I tell my daughter, she's 15, And I say, listen, man, I know you're going to make mistakes because you're young. I'm okay with that. You're young. You're going to make dumb mistakes. I'm okay with that. But now there gets a point, you're not making dumb mistakes anymore. You're just being stupid. Because when you make a mistake, you learn from it. You should not be making that same mistake again. That's why for me, I can't see myself going back to having bad credit again. Because I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the situation. When you have bad credit, it's like you're looked at differently. But I'm telling you, you have good credit, you walk into any place and your credit 800, 750, 770, whatever that is, and you got a great rapport, hey, it's like the red carpet. Oh, it's like a kid in the candy store. You walk in there, hey, what do you want? You want that? Just take whatever you want. But you got to be in a situation where you're financially educated. You can't be like, take what you want, and then all of a sudden you'll get yourself in a bad debt, and now you're back to school where you were in the beginning, right? So I'm very passionate about this because I believe for me is there's a lot of people that were me, that I was in that situation, who's still in that situation. If you need help with your credit, I can direct you, I can educate you. If you need help with your credit report, you can reach out to me at amir.estimo@thinkgenwealth.com. Okay, that would be probably the best way to reach out to me. And I can actually do a free consultation for you. I'm not going to take your money. I don't need money. Now, if you need me to help repair your credit, I can do that. But that will come with cost, right? But for me, I rather educate you and teach you than tell you. And I have receipts, folks. So if you think, he's just saying that just to say that, and then I go pull and I got 500 credit. I have a 500 credit score. It was funny because before I wrap up here, I was reading. I think I saw online. Someone made a post, and they made a post, and there was this person claiming that they were some type of credit repair. And when some of the students, they were coach. When some of the students asked them for receipts, meaning, hey, can we see proof of the person, I don't want to say who it is or he or she, but the person wouldn't divulge that information. So I think it was by accident, they logged into I think it was Credit Karma they were using. And you know how when you're doing calls on Zoom and you're trying to share your screen, the person shared the screen of them logging into Credit Karma. When they logged in Credit Card, guess what was their credit score? It was a 540. So you have people teaching people about good credit when they have bad credit themselves. So that's why for me, I'm not going to come here and talk about great credit when me myself have bad credit. It's just, that doesn't, that's not authentic. And I don't want to put myself in that position, because you want to practice what you preach. If I preach about good credit, guess what? I should have good credit myself. Okay. So if you need help, you can reach out to me at amir.estimo@thinkgenwealth.com. I can give you a free consultation. We could take a look at, if you already have your credit report, again, you can go to freeannualcreditreport.com or annualcreditreport.com. You can actually, it's a one-time. If you have a bank, you can actually go to your bank and get your credit report, and I think they should give it to you for free. I know Chase done it before, so you can go to any of those banks. And sometimes too, when you bank with these companies, I know Chase does it, but when you bank with some of these companies, they send you like a credit monitoring. You can actually go and log in and take a look at your credit report yourself, because you're looking at the same thing that they're looking at. So you're not looking at anything different. But you want to do these things because you want to make sure, right? You want to make sure you can do this yourself. But if you want to pay someone to do it, please do your research. Do your homework. Because you have some of these people, they'll lead you down the wrong path. And if they're not educating you on each step, find somebody else or just do it yourself. But again, if you're not patient, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to exchange money for a service, right? That's where money comes in. You exchange cash or money for service. And the service is them help repair your credit. Okay? Hopefully this episode was of value to you. I know it's more lengthier than usual, but honestly, it's just because I am so passionate about credit, your credit score, your credit repair, your credit report, because these are things that's going to help you grow wealth. You cannot grow wealth on bad credit. I'm sorry. I don't know. If it's happened, please share it. I would love to know it. And it's just not something that happens with bad credit. And honestly, with where we are today, I feel like the pandemic, a lot of people don't talk about that's happening is your credit, is people with bad credit. And so take the time today, educate yourself before you go pay somebody to do it. In most cases, you'll realize, man, me paying $80 a month when I can just do this myself. And all it takes is patience and time and education. You do any of those things, you can raise your credit score by yourself. But if you need more help, reach out to someone. Okay? All right. The word of the day for Creole. Obviously, I'm Haitian. These last episodes, I generally share a Haitian Creole word because I am of Haitian descent. And today is crédit. So since we're talking about credit, crédit. What is that? Credit. So if you have a Haitian friend or you know someone that's Haitian, you can just tell them, hey, ou gen crédit, bon is good credit. Okay? Now let's share quote of the day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what do you simply proves what you believe? Simon Sinek. Until next week, much love.